Welcome, everyone, to our Barhead Live Microsoft for Lawyers. This is episode 2 of 8, where we are taking you step by step through all of the amazing Microsoft technologies that are available to you. Last time around, we looked at some awesome stuff with To-Do and Planner and Teams and so on. You'll find that here on our Barhead page if you missed that. And today, we have got some exciting automation capabilities for you. Please interact with us in the chat, pop your questions in, anything else you'd like to see covered along the way. I will be moderating throughout. My name's Lisa Crosby. I'm going to hand over now to my awesome colleagues, Amanda Fadgerman and Rishona Elijah, who will introduce themselves and kick off with the content for today.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks, Lisa, and hi, everyone. My name is Amanda Fadgerman. I'm the Engagement Manager for Consensus, which is a matter management and contract lifecycle management application built on the Microsoft Cloud. I've got a real passion for helping lawyers use the full capability of Microsoft for their legal technology needs, and I wear a few other hats as a committee member of WALTA, the Women of Australian Legal Technology Association, and a geeky guru for the Centre for Legal Innovation. First off, I just want to do an acknowledgement of country, so acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land I'm standing on here today, the Boonwurrung Boonwurrung and the Wurundjeri Wurrung peoples of the Eastern Kulin Nation, and pay respect to their elders past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders who are joining us here today. I also want to acknowledge our fabulous event partners, the Centre for Legal Innovation. Again, thank you, Terry Modested, and the Australasian Society for Computers and the Law. Thank you, Marina Yasparov. We're thrilled to present this series to collaborate together to further our joint missions in innovating the legal technology industry.
All right, thanks, Amanda. And just a bit about me, everyone. So my name is Rishona from Barhead. I'm a Microsoft MVP, and I work at Barhead as a Power Platform trader. Really excited for what we've got in store for you today. We're going to be looking at all things Power Automate, so I'll be doing the demo for us for today. Nice to meet you all, and I'll hand it back over to Amanda.
Thanks, Rishona. I'm really excited to present this series with Rishona, and today's session is probably the one that I'm the most excited about. So I want to get straight into it. Before I do, I just want to recap a few quick things. Firstly, our target audience here are legal practitioners, from in-house lawyers to private practice lawyers to government lawyers, community CLCs or community centres. They all ultimately share the same passion for the need to create, to store, to retrieve, to access information and knowledge, but relevantly for today, they're looking at ways to reduce the manual tasks, to increase productivity and to increase efficiencies to make their daily lives easier and add value. When we're talking about Microsoft, some of it may look familiar, some of it may not. There's no right or wrong way for the way that your team may or may not use Office 365 and these applications. So the use cases might be slightly different, and that's ultimately because the platform that Microsoft provides is designed to be enterprise, flexible and scalable. And that's why partners such as Barhead are designed to help teams set up the business applications for their specific use cases and meet client needs. Look, as Rishona and Lisa have both said, we really want your input, we want your feedback and we want your questions. So please add comments to the chat. We'd love to hear what you'd like us to address in future sessions. So just to do a quick recap for last week. At its core, Microsoft is an ecosystem of interrelated and integrated applications for productivity, collaboration, and enterprise-wide data management. And we've got the Teams layer there sitting as a skin across all these applications. As Rishona takes you through some of the demo today, you'll see the way in which she uses Teams to collate all these different applications, all embedded within a Teams environment, and the way she flicks between them. So a fortnight ago, Lisa and I presented on Microsoft's productivity tools and how legal teams can use To-Do, Planner and Tasks to better manage their daily work. And today, session 2, we're going to cover how legal teams can use Power Automate to automate processes such as approvals and notifications. So we'll demonstrate a flow, we'll talk you through how you can create a flow to automate some approvals and some documents. Now, and if you've ever created a rule in Microsoft Outlook, like, a quick link or a quick quick step to add an email to a calendar, or to put a particular email from a particular group or person into a subfolder. That is essentially automation. You've already explored the concept of automation. So Power Automate essentially takes that functionality and lets you connect with multiple connectors, both within and external to Microsoft, across a variety of different applications so that you can run a workflow. So a bit about Power Automate before we go into it. The purpose of Power Automate is essentially to automate business processes to trigger workflows. And the idea here is that people should be able to focus on tasks where they can bring unique human value. And that's particularly apt for lawyers and so many legal departments who endure wasted time on administrative tasks, low value work, instead of focusing on those areas of legal work that actually require skill, human expertise, skill, judgment, where they can actually add strategic value to the organisation. So Power Automate allows you to accelerate productivity across the organisation, reducing manual re-entry, repetitive tasks, and reducing costly errors due to those manual processes so that you can focus on more strategic work. Now, critically, it's stuff that you can do yourself. There are built-in templates which basically provide you with a framework, the no-code platform for you to follow certain steps and automate certain tasks. But just a word of warning, that the power of Power Automate is because it's enterprise-wide. It's an enterprise-wide business application, and therefore, due to its flexibility, it does bring a slight degree of complexity. Now, the complexity can be overcome if you know where to click on what to do, but it doesn't replace the need for matter management systems or contract management systems. It can certainly aid with some process improvement and efficiency. So on that note, Rashona, can you kick us off and show us where we can find Power Automate, or where users can find it? Where does it live?
Of course, let's get stuck into it then. So thank you for that intro into Power Automate, Amanda. So Power Automate, of course, you want to know where you can go and find it. There are 3 places we can go and use it. First off, I'm going to talk about how you can find it directly within Teams. So for our Teams users here, you don't even need to journey far to go and find this and start using the tools that we're going to be showing you today. Of course, you can see here I am in my web browser, but you can, of course, do this from the Teams desktop app as well. But just for demo purposes, I'll be in Teams in my web browser here. So directly within Teams, we have all of these apps down the side. Simply just look for Power Automate, and there we go, we have it there. So we can access this inbuilt into Teams like this. What you can even do, of course, is probably something you want to be accessing quite often. You can just go ahead and pin the app to the side there. So you have it sitting there ready for you to go and use it. I'll give us a bit of a tour of this later on and show us around, but this is where we're going to be building what we call the flows, which are essentially these processes that we want to automate. And we can find them all sitting in our Teams app that we have here. And as we'll see later in today's session, where we can go and create new ones as well, or even get started with one of the templates that are here, which I'll talk about in a moment. The other spot in Teams is you can also access this directly from a team itself. You know how you can pin certain things to your channels? Over here we have that plus symbol. I might already have it there, so I might actually go to a different one to show you that. If we go to our channel and we click add a tab, we have all of these apps available to us, so anyone accessing the channel can go and launch it from here. The same thing applies to Power Automate. Here it actually looks like it's called Flow, but same thing. Flow is the other name for Power Automate, and we can add it in there. So this means rather than it sitting as like our own sort of personal app in Teams, we can go and access. By putting it in a Teams channel, that means anyone who has access to the team can go here, can see what processes and automation we've made using this. Apart from Teams, there's also the full website for Power Automate. We'll also show you some demos of using this one today as well. So this is over in the website called flow.microsoft.com. A way that you can find this is, let's say if you're in Teams or another app, you just click on your app launcher in the corner here. you can go into your Office apps and you'll be able to find them here. So over here you can see we have Power Automate sitting at the side. Let's go ahead and launch that one. The same thing applies here, so either you could be using those Teams apps I just showed you, or maybe for something a bit more complex that you want to build, head over into the full version of Power Automate that you can see here to go and build it out. And over here, it's that same interface that we have of these different workflows that we can build, but you will see there are a lot more options here for when you want to get more complex in the automation that you're doing. But we'll show you two sides of it in today's session. And Amanda, back to you. You are on mute, Amanda. I feel like I got to say that once every time, right?
Thank you, Rashona. So let's go through some of the template automations that are already built into the Office application and Teams. So a lot of what lawyers do day to day requires collaboration. Perhaps a junior lawyer needs to get a partner to sign off on a document before they send it to a client, or perhaps a corporate lawyer needs to get sign off from the business before they email a contract over to another side. So can you show us how Microsoft has embedded some default or template flows into their application?
Yep, of course. Let's go ahead and I'll jump into Teams first for this one. So today we're going to be showing you how to build some automation from scratch, but you don't even need to do that to get started because directly in Teams there's already some inbuilt automation for us like Amanda just mentioned. A key one here is around approval process, which I'm sure all of us here is something we have to face on a daily basis. You know, you might have a contract or a document, you need to send it to someone else to go and verify or make any changes and maybe mark it off before you can send it through to someone. That entire process of sending things back and forth is pretty much already automated for you with the Approvals app that's inside of Teams. To find that, once again, if you go into your apps, and I already got it there, but you can also search for Approvals. And this provides you a centralized place for any approval that you need to send through, or any that's coming towards you as well. So, for example, maybe if I have a contract I want my colleague to review, I can click New Approval Request. I can enter the name of my colleague here who I want to approve it. Let's say Sam Williams. If I wanted to put some additional detail there, and I could also add an attachment as well if there was some sort of document we wanted him to review too. And once that's done, we can go ahead and click Send, which I won't do now. But what that will do, in effect, is Sam, he's going to go and get a notification in Teams, similar to something that looks like this. So it's directly in Teams for him. He can see that document. He can see whatever other info I might have added in here. And I've already actioned on that one here. Let me see if there's one I haven't. But we'll have the ability to either click Approve, Reject, and we'll see that in action a bit later in one of the other flows that we demonstrate. So this is all about streamlining that process. You don't need to send multiple emails to someone. It's all managed via this Approvals app within Teams as well. So speaking of more templates here, so the next thing from here is, yes, we have these approvals that we can readily use in Teams, but there are also these other template workflows that are a quick way to get started as well. So I'll show us a few of these and where we can find them. So over in the Teams app, let's go over into our Power Automate. We have some automation via templates that's already here for us to use. Just scroll down here and you can see we have these ones here. Start with the template. So over here, let's go ahead. We'll take a look at all of them. It's really great because they categorize them based on what you're looking for. So maybe if you want something to do with approval, we can go over to the approval category. And then we can go ahead and, if we want to start an approval when someone adds a file to SharePoint, we can just simply click on this and it's going to be ready for us to go. There'll just be a few things that we need to configure, like perhaps the team or the file we want it to look like. But this is ready for us to use. We don't need to configure it much further. The one I will show us, though, is, let's go back into our top picks, follow up on a message. I love this one. I feel like it's the most simple use case as well, because how many times have you been in Teams, you've seen someone has sent you a message or something to do, but you're in the middle of something else at the moment. This follow up on a message one lets you just select a message and then select a time you want to be reminded about it. So, rather than forgetting about it, it's going to come up with a reminder on how you can use it. So simply, if I just click on that template and let's do create a flow. So simply what that does, if I'm in Teams and if I see a message of someone telling me to go and do something or anything that I maybe want to go and follow up on later, on the message, I can click on my more options here and we'll see these things called more actions. And over here, we see that flow or that automation that we just activated, follow up on a message. So simply what that will do is get us to specify a date, a time, and when we would like to be reminded of that. So this one, in addition to all of those other templates that you saw there, I reckon go and explore them. So take a browse through. I find that the templates are a best way to get an idea of what you can build with Power Automate. So simply just take a browse through. I'm sure you'll find something that you'll be able to start using immediately back in the office. And Amanda, back to you.
Mouse on the unmute button this time. I think that the power of those templates are just incredible, and I love the way that you can actually not only filter and search based on categories like approvals, but you can also search for the applications. So you can search for Outlook and Forms, and it'll bring together all the templates that link those two applications together. I show that while you're going. Yeah, great. Or even if you're looking outside, so I'll just let you show that. So you just do a search for email or Outlook. It will capture so many different combinations of Microsoft applications or even applications external to Microsoft. So if you're looking to include a flow that captures either Salesforce or Twitter or any other Workday, there's so many other different connectors that you can include that have those native integrations. You can run those searches and find already built-in templates that you can leverage without having to do the manual steps yourself.
Just to add on that, Amanda, I'll go to the full version of Power Automate here. So if you did want to see all of those connectors that Amanda mentioned, you can get a good view of that if you go into the Power Automate website. So, if you have a system in mind you want to work with, head over to connectors. And here you have over 650 different cloud systems connectors that you can use. So Salesforce, Outlook, Microsoft, non-Microsoft, third-party things. You can find that complete list here. It doesn't look like it wants to load fast enough, but here we are. So we've got things like Twitter, blog feeds, OneDrive, and you can get a good idea of what connectors are available from here. So perhaps if you wanted to... Sorry, go ahead, Amanda.
That's all right. There's even a ton of Google integrations.
Yes, they are.
Well.
Let's try out
You're
the
on the
search
Google
one.
Drive.
So we can just search for Google, and there we go. All our Google connectors are there. If perhaps you wanted to do something with it, like let's say Google Calendar, if you just start from the connector, it gives you some videos, some tips, some templates, some things that you can start using with that immediately too.
And it'll also prompt you to log into that connection as well. So whereas for Rashona, the apps that she's demoing are automatically signing her into her Office, native Office environment. If you are connecting to something external, it'll prompt you to say, hey, sign in. So let's go into a couple of scenarios here. Let's imagine a scenario where a team has a templates folder which contains some legal precedents. Now, most of the time, lawyers don't want those precedents being amended and changed because they want them locked down. So let's say we've got some sort of template or some sort of precedent. Now, it could be a template, but it could be any other document that somebody in the organisation wants to receive a notification if someone goes in and amends it or makes a change. So, Rashona, can you talk us through how they might go about doing this?
Exactly. All right. So first I'll actually show us what Amanda just described, then I'll show you how we can go in and build it. This is actually a pretty straightforward, simple one to get us started. So like Amanda said, we perhaps have a template here in Teams. I have this one here in my file section called templates, and we have this NDA one. And we want to know if someone's going and modifying this. If I was to go ahead and open up my Word doc for it, let's say if I'm going ahead and making a few changes, like maybe I might delete this row from here, save that. Me making that change, saving that document, is what's going to trigger a notification to myself to let me know that someone has gone and modified it. So that notification will probably take about a minute or so to come through, but you'll notice when it does. But in the end, what we have is we'll get a simple Teams message that's telling us this file has been modified and who made that change. My name for this demo, by the way, is Alex Hunter. That's why it says Alex Hunter here. And when that comes through, we'll see the notification come up. That notification, by the way, could be anything. Since we're working in Teams, we wanted this to come through via Teams, but I'll show you where you can call on all those different connectors to have whatever other action you want to occur from here. Alright, so let's get into how we built this. Pretty straightforward one. I'm going to start off over in the Power Automate app for Teams. You can also do this from the website as well. But I feel, we're already in Teams, we've got the app here. Let's go ahead and build it. Alright, so first up, we're going to go ahead and create a new flow. So we'll be building one from scratch this time, rather than starting from one of these templates that's ready for us already. So we'll create from blank. We can give our flow a name. So by the way, this process, flow is what it's called in Power Automate. It's this step-by-step flow or process that we're building out. That's the name for it, just in case if you're wondering why I've mentioned the word flow a few times. So let's call this notification for a file. I know I had a typo there, but I'm just going to keep going. All right, so what we're going to do here is we're going to set our triggering action. So in this case, it was me going ahead and modifying that file. That's what's going to kick off this flow to run. So it could be something like someone submits a form, someone sends through an email, someone assigns you a task in Planner. For this one, because we're working with a file that's stored in Teams, which is actually SharePoint, we're going to start off with this SharePoint trigger. And let's look for one for our file. So let's go with when an item or file is modified. And you can see there are all of these other options that we have here, of course, which we could use instead if that's what we wanted to kick off this process that we're running. Simply what we're going to do here is we're just going to point it to whereabouts in SharePoint, whereabouts in Teams we want it to notify us. So what we'll do here is, because we had that document stored in our legal team, we can specify that as the site address. What you'll see in this drop down, even if you don't use SharePoint directly, is that these are going to be all those teams that you have set up in Teams. So we've got our legal team, and here we're going to specify documents because we're looking at files that we have stored. And then we're going to specify the folder that we want to monitor. So any document, any file that's in this particular folder, modifying that is what's going to send off our trigger. So what we want to do here is we want to click Share Documents. That's where it's being stored. And the one called General. So once you go through to Shared Documents and General, that's where you'll see what you see in that files area of Teams that we have there. And in this case, our one was in the templates folder. So we'll specify that one. All right, so we've got our trigger. The next thing now is we want to send through a notification when that happens. You can call or you can get any of these actions to occur. Maybe if you wanted it to be an email, another like a mobile notification or anything else, you can select those. But for this one, we'll go ahead and we'll pick Microsoft Teams. And let's do post a message. so we can get that message that we saw came through earlier. Over here, we can just click Flow Bot. So this is actually like a bot that you have sitting in your chat that you can talk to. So it won't actually come from a particular person, the notification, but it will be from what I showed earlier. Or it will sit in your chat. And we want to post in our chat with the Flow bots. And over here, we'll write in our message. So let's say, what should we say? Let's say your file. So what I'm doing here is I can type in that message that I want to send. At the side, we have what we call dynamic content. So this is information that's going to change each time the flow runs. So if I want to bring in the name of that particular file that was modified, or bring in the name of the person who went and did the modification, we can add that in by selecting it at the side here. So let's say the file, and let's say the title of that file was modified by, and we want to know who did it. So let's see what other option we have here. Let's say display name, I think we want. I'll just type it in the search. Modified by display name. That's what we want there. And we'll go ahead and save that. Oop, forgot my recipient. There we go. That's the other thing. So if there is a mistake somewhere or something isn't working, you saw that flow checker in action, you'll get like a red dot over the top of that to let you know. So in this case, it's told me my recipient isn't there. I'll just put in my email address. And just making sure that it sends it to me only. We'll go ahead and save that. Alright, so that's ready to go, and that's active now. So what we've done here is we've built that flow. If you did want to go and turn it off at any point, you can do that. So at the moment it's active, but if we head over into our Home tab, we can see that it's here, it's active. So now if I was to go and modify that file, open it up, we'll get our Teams notification that looks like this to tell me when it's been modified and who did it. All right, Amanda, I think that's the first scenario that we have there.
That's amazing, Roshona. Thank you for that. You really make it look so simple, and I love the way that Microsoft has that built-in testing feature so that you can automatically test if there's any underlying errors in the flow itself, and then test it afterwards. So let's go to something which is a little bit more complex. Let's play with a few different triggers and a number of different connectors here. So let's see. Let's take an example where someone is going to use a Microsoft form to capture feedback about the legal team and a matter that they've recently worked on. So can we try and set up a form to capture some feedback on the completion of a matter, send an email notification once someone has submitted that form, and create an item in To-Do for somebody in the team to review that feedback?
Yep, all right. Let's show you how you can do this one. All right, so like Amanda said, first I'll demo you what the end result is going to look like. Then we'll get into how you can go ahead and build this one. Our starting point here is going to be Microsoft Forms. Let me open up my forms. You can find forms, by the way, if you're just in your Office app, open up your apps and go to Forms. So for those unfamiliar with forms, you know, if you want to get feedback about something, create a poll, you can go ahead and build this here. So we have this one called Feedback. I'm going to go ahead and submit this. Type of matter, let's say contracting. What did the advice relate to? Amanda, do you have anything to add about using forms as a way to collect this information?
Yeah, look, you know, forms are great for feedback. It can also be used, and I think that another scenario that we're going to go and deep dive into next is a bit more like a matter intake or a self-service tool. It does have a couple of limitations. You can, and next session we're going to go through a little bit more of the functionality in forms in a little bit more detail to show how you can do things like branching, which gives you a degree of conditional logic. But the underlying essence is that it is really just a push-only activity. So where you saw that question that said, what did that matter relate to? Roshona had to manually type Northland Traders because that was the matter name. Now, in an ideal world, you want to be capturing some sort of structured data, in which case, that's where, for instance, we've gone and developed a matter management system using a SharePoint portal, sorry, not a Power Apps portal, which does give you that degree of consistency to make sure that you're actually pulling the right data and you can actually get matter names straight from the system. So just be aware that Forms is great for something like feedback. It does have its limitations, but certainly a really good first step to capturing, a series of short questions and it can be either from internal to your organisation, or you can set it so that it can be external to the organisation as well. If it is internal, it'll automatically capture, through single sign-on, the person's name, email address, etc. So that sort of reduces some of the friction that's often involved. If it's external, you want to capture some of that information through those questions.
All right, thanks, Amanda. So what I have here is I've gone ahead and filled out the form. I'll go and submit this. And while we're here, I'll just show us around Forms a bit, just to add on what Amanda mentioned. So we've created this simple form. We've added in some questions. If you wanted to change the design of it as well, you can change the theme, make it your own picture, so you can kind of personalize these a bit as well. Then, of course, if you want to add in questions to your form, like you can see we have here, you can simply just add new, and you have all of these different options as well. Like if it's a choice, a date you want to collect. So, for example, if we only wanted to collect a number from someone, we could use that. So there are these different types of question types we can use as we create this. All right, so what I've done there is you saw me go ahead and fill out that form. I've submitted it. The next part of this process will be we're going to send these results as an email in Outlook. So we know straight away when someone submits the form, we know what their results are. And we may as well also create a task in Planner as well. Let's go and check on that email that would have come through. I'll open up Outlook here. And here we go. We've got that email come in to let me know a new feedback submission has come through from this person. That's my email address here. And we've also embedded or inserted in those results that we gave them. So we get that immediate notification. We can see straight away what they actually responded with as well. In addition to that, we've also got, as part of our process, a Planner task to be automatically created. So if you remember Planner, we looked at this one last week. We have, not last week, in the fortnight in our previous session, we have our Planner embedded in Teams. I've got it in my Northwind Traders team that we've set up because that's what the Planner task related to. And this is the one that was just automatically created here. We've got our task created called Review Feedback. We've assigned it to someone, Lisa in this case. We've even assigned it a category or a color as well to help us distinguish that. All right, so let's build this out. Let's show you how to make this. I'm just going to go into the full or the website of Power Automate to build this one to show you that you do have options on where you want to create these flows that you're making. Let's go over into My Flows. So when you arrive here, you're going to see all of these different options for creating a new flow, like automated, instant, scheduled. These are the different types of triggers that you can have. This one in particular will be an automated flow because it's going to automatically start from someone submitting that form, making the form submission. But if we wanted to go and click on a button to get the flow to run, sort of make it on demand, we can make it an instant one. Or if we have a specific time we want it to run, we can click a scheduled one instead. But over here we want automated. Let's call this form feedback. And here we have all of these triggers. So that one we're using is actually already in the list. Otherwise we can search for forms because that's the connector that we're using. And we're starting off with when a new response is submitted. So pretty straightforward. All we need to do here is just specify the form that we want to monitor. We want one call feedback time. Now, our next step is we want to be able to collect the information that came through on that submission. So what we'll do here is we're going to look for forms again. And we're going to select the action, once it loads, called Get Response Details. That's actually going to go and capture that info that we saw added into that email that was sent out. So essentially what we'll do here is we'll add in our form ID, and that's our one which is the feedback time. And in our response ID, we're going to use this dynamic content that's popping up at the side for this response ID. So that just means it's going to look at this submission and it's going to collect or get the response details of that particular one. So next step, we want that email to go and send out. So over here, we'll add in a new step and let's look for Outlook, or we can even just search email. And let's click this one for send an email. So 2, we can say the email of who we want it sent to. I'll just do myself today. Subject, new feedback requests, or new feedback. And don't worry, I will copy and paste this, so you don't need to watch me type it out. So over here, we can type in whatever message we want there. And we also have all of these formatting options too. So, we might bold something, we might make that smaller actually, we might make it bigger, change the color of it as we want. So we have all this formatting features that we can do here. So what I've done, I've just typed in some text of what I want in the email, but we want to add in whatever those responses were. That's done via this dynamic content that we see at the side. So what we see here are each of those questions, and if you recall, these are the questions that were on that form that we just submitted. So we can insert this throughout the message as we want. So let's say, what did it relate to? So we can go ahead and find that question, if I remember which one it is, that one there. So we can sort of just link it up, insert it as we want. Type of matter you need assistance with, we can add in that question. And of course, we also have the search here as well. So who with your advice? There we go. Considering time, I won't go through and add in each of them, but you get the idea of how we can embed the responses inside of that email. So our email is done. The next one we'll do here is one to create that planner task. So we can call on our planner connector. And let's do create a task. So in this case, we're already going to assume we have planner set up that we can use, and we'll link it up to that one that we had in Northwind Traders. So over here, we can specify our Microsoft team, which was called Northwind Traders. We can specify the name of the planner instance that was there, and then give it a title of the task that we want, new feedback. To review. We can even specify the bucket that we want. So you'll notice that what I'm doing here, it links back to what we see over here, those different buckets, who we want it assigned to, and so on. And then other things we can do, we can specify the time, the due date, we can put on a category for it, and we can even allocate it to a particular person by just typing in the email address of the person if we would like it to be automatically assigned. And that's the flow that we have built. So to recap, what this one is doing is we submit that form. It gets sent via email. So with that one I demoed before, you can see it's gone through, embedded the responses, and finally created that planner task for us over here. All right, Amanda, back to you now.
Thanks, Roshona. You really do make it look so easy. Okay, we're going to take it up a notch now and do something which is slightly more complex. And this scenario is pretty common for lawyers. So again, we'll use the idea of a form as a basic way to capture some sort of matter instructions. And again, we'll go through forms in a little bit more detail next week. And we'll also actually describe how Power Virtual Agents, which is the chatbot that Microsoft also offers as part of the Power Platform, can also be used for that purpose of capturing instructions. But in this case, we'll take forms, We'll ask a series of questions to automate a document, and we might want to also include some sort of approval process as part of that automation, and then send an email back to the requester to say, yes, your document's been approved, here's a copy of your document. So that sort of self-service way of managing the legal workflow where you can still have some guardrails, but it's managed. And the conditional logic here that we'll use is an approval, but I guess, the idea here that or the technique that Rashona will use, you can think to yourself, okay, what sort of conditional logic might I apply or is relevant to me in my organisation? And it may be that if the user selected that they need a contracting type of matter, you're going to send an email to a particular person. And if they've selected general advice, then you want it to go to somebody else in the team. So the theory is the same, regardless of the type of conditional logic that you use. But Rashona, let's go through this scenario in more detail.
Alrighty, this is the one I was keen for. This is I gotta say, this is my favorite one. It's pretty cool what you can do with document automation and Power Automate. Alright, so let's talk about what Amanda just explained. Let's say we have this contract, this document that we need filled in. We're going to see how simply just submitting a form can go ahead, email someone the details, put it in a spreadsheet, and even go ahead and create that contract for us by inserting all that information we wanted that we added in on the form. So to kick us off, I'm going to start off by showing us the template that we're working with of this NDA that we have. So let's say over in Teams, I have this template stored. And I'll open it up in Word so you can get an idea of what we're working with here. So for this document automation that I'm going to show you, you need to have a Word template. So what I've done here is I've put in these different places you can insert the text. So this is done via the Developer tab in Microsoft Word. If you don't see your Developer tab, by the way, you'll probably need to go to File, and it should be in your other options where you can go and enable it. But simply what I've done here, I've only done 3 things that we're going to fill in this case. It could really be anywhere else in the document, any other information. It could be a signature. It could be like lines or a table of something. So you can make a template out of anything. But in this case, I just want my permitted purpose, the term, and the governing law to be inserted. So by the way, if you just go and you add in control, you can see that's gone ahead and it's inserted a spot for us to go and insert some sort of text there. So that's just a bit about the Word templates if you're unfamiliar with that. But that's going to be our starting point for what we're working with today. Alright, so we've got our template. We've got this stored in SharePoint or in Teams. Now I'm going to go ahead and fill out a form for us. So we'll see this process kick off then. Let me go back to my form that we'll work with for today. We'll go to R1 legal matter request. Alright, so how can we help you? And I'm going to say I need a contract drafted and I want an NDA. These types of options or responses I'm given is actually going to route that flow that we're building out and the process. So I said I wanted an NDA. It knows that, and we'll see the end result is going to produce the results in that NDA that I showed us. So let's go ahead. We can fill this out a bit more. What else do we want? Permitted purpose. Well, something we can write in permitted purpose, Amanda.
Let's just go with, merger and acquisition or M&A deal, business dealings.
There we go. What's the term? Let's say 2. Governing law. That one was a drop down. Let's pick Australia. Anything else? Let's say this is highly confidential. Oh, by the way, the other thing is, for this term question, you'll notice that it must be a number. So when you're building your format, you can even specify, what type of text, or it must be a number I type in here to make sure people aren't putting in things that you don't want. And let's say our dates, let's say by today. we'll go ahead and submit that. Alright, so our form is done, and that's really all the manual work that we need to do at that point, because the flow is going to manage the rest of this. So what I'm going to show you is that information I've just submitted. It's going to go and post it into a spreadsheet for us. Over in Teams, so this is on Excel online, just got to make sure it's an Excel file that you have stored on SharePoint or in Teams. So over in my file area, in this team, I have this one called the Legal Assistant Spreadsheet. I've even just added it as a top, pinned it to the top of our channel here. And this is the one that I've just submitted. So you can see it's actually taken the form and it's inserted that into the spreadsheet for us into the table automatically. So we've got the response. The next thing now is we want someone to go and review this information before we go and create that document for us. So we're having a condition at this point. Are they going to reject it? Are they going to approve it? You can see we're using that approvals app that we have directly in Teams here. The same request will also come to you via Outlook. So either I can action it from Outlook or I can action it from Teams. Either way, it won't make a difference. Alright, so let's say, sounds good, and we can approve that one. Alright, so what it's doing now is it's going to go ahead, I've approved it, it's going to go and create that document for us. It will fill out the template, it will store it in SharePoint or Teams, and as a bonus, it's going to also email that document to the person who submitted the form in the first place. So over in Teams, let's go ahead and see if it's being created yet. I wanted it to be in this file here. And let me just refresh that. Might take a moment or so to come through if it's not there. Oh, there we go. There it is. So I can open up that document. I can also open it up in the email as well. So we've also sent an email to the person who submitted the form with that as an attachment. So I can also view it from here too. So what you can see, so this I'm just viewing in my browser tab, but of course you can open it in your Word app as well if you wanted to. It's gone ahead, taken the information I had on the form, and it's added it into our template here. So it's not magic, it's Power Automate. So there's of course a lot more you can do with this if you wanted a lot more in the template, more questions to be filled out. Go ahead, try it out. There's more you can do with building out the template that you want. Alright, so the flow for this one is a bit more complicated than the ones that we've just taken a look at. But feel free to come back and re-watch this at any point soon in the future. Soon this week, I'll try also make a blog post perhaps where you can go and you can look over this if you wanted to copy the flow I'm sending you now, showing you now. I won't build this one from scratch because it is a bit long, but I'll talk you through exactly how it's been done. Alright, so let me open up the one that I've done before. Alright, so in this case, we're starting off with our trigger, which is like in the previous one we just showed you, when a new response is submitted. And in this case, we're looking at that legal matter request one. Next, we have this action, which is get response details. So like before, we're collecting that information from the response that came through. And I've sort of tagged this here so you can get an idea of what each action is doing. I've added in the Excel online action, which is called add a row into a table. So this is what's going to take that information and add it into that spreadsheet for us. So by the way, for the spreadsheets to work, you need to make sure that you have it set up as a table itself. So back over on that spreadsheet that I added it to. So, it's not just a blank spreadsheet. This is actually created as a table. So, you can just start it as a table, have a table name, and that's what you're linking to in this flow that you're building. So we've just pointed to. Go ahead.
Sorry, Shona, the one selection that you need to make there in the spreadsheet is format as table, so that the system or Power Automate recognizes those column headings as fields, which you can then map the form answers to.
Yep, that's right. Once you select your table, my one was just called Table 1, but it will bring through all of those columns that you have set up in that table. So what we can do here then is we're just inserting out those questions that we saw on the form, a bit like the previous flow I just shown you. So help requested that column on our table. We want to link that one up to our question of how can we help. So we'll select that question from here so we get the right information inserted and it knows exactly where to land. So with our flows, we can add in conditional branching as well. So based on certain outcomes and things that happen, perhaps we want a different set of actions to occur. So we can add in these different conditions. In this case, we're going to take a look at what I answered to the question, what type of contract did I want? We only want it to run if I selected I want an NDA. So over here we've added in the dynamic content for that question. What type of contract do you want? It must equal the results of NDA. So if I picked NDA, it will run the rest of this process that I've built. We've added in this action for Office 365 users. And the reason I've done that is just so we can get some more info about the person who submitted the form. By default, we'll only have their email address to work with. But if we wanted to see things like their birthday, their name, their address, the office they work from, we can use this one called Get User Profile so we can collect all of that information and then perhaps use that in the flow that we're building. Then we're going to reach another condition soon enough. And this is where we're sending off an approval process to run. So you can have a different types of approval. In this case, it's just sending it to one person, and we've specified that person. You can also set it up so that it goes to multiple people, goes through a list of different people. So you have these different ways which you can pick from the approval type on how you would like that to work. But what we're doing here is we're just taking the form results and adding them in here. So we can either approve or reject this one that came through. Which then takes us to another condition of whether they rejected that or not. What I've done here, if they rejected, I've just added in a Teams message to let them know, the person who submitted it, that it's been rejected, unfortunately. But if yes, over here, we're now going to add in some steps for creating that Word doc. So over here, I just have a couple of steps for that. The connector that we want to use here is the one called the Word Online connector. So if you just do a search and if you look for Word, and then we have this one, populate a Word template, and we also have this one where you can convert it to PDF. I realize we're short on time, so I'll try to go through this a bit fast. But essentially what we're doing here is we're just linking up the location of where that file, that template was stored in Teams. And here we're going to have all of those options that I set up on that Word template, which we can then insert this dynamic content form across here. And then finally, once that template has been populated, we want to create a separate file for that. So we can give it a file name. You can type this out here. I just call it NDA, and I'm using the date they wanted it by. And that file content is going to be whatever was generated here from that template. So at this point, our new file, our NDA, has been stored, it's submitted, and it's created in SharePoint for us. So the next couple of ones that we have here is then getting that file and sending the email out. So over here, I've added in a SharePoint action just to retrieve where that file is now stored. And finally, we've added in this Outlook action where we're going to send an email back to the person who submitted the form. And we're going to add in these attachments here. I realize this is probably a lot to take in, so like I said, we will probably do a bit of a blog post or something like that, or feel free to come back and rewatch this if you wanted to try and build this out for yourself. And Amanda, with 5 minutes to go, I reckon I'll hand back to you.
Thank you, Roshona. It's so powerful. And yes, Marina, there is some, degree of complexity and it can get confusing. I guess that is, part that sort of comes with the power of Microsoft is that flexibility. Okay, so I just wanted to do a recap just to see how this fits into the rest of the sessions. So in a fortnight's time, we're going to cover a little bit more detail about Power Virtual Agents and how we can use conversational bots for intake, for triage, and for self-service. We're then going to move on to session 4. It might get a little bit more technical, but session 4, Rashona, if you just move the PowerPoint along, is going to go through a bit of a document builder and how we can actually use some AI for document processing. So this is really going to get technical about reading some documents so that the system can learn what some fields are and automatically read that. Session 5 is going to take email management as one of those core needs of legal users and the functions that legal need to manage that email communication backwards and forwards, and show how we can solve that and users can continue to work in Outlook without having to switch applications for some of those processes. Session 6 is going to take you again back to that core of collaboration tools and how the way lawyers can deal with the information and the knowledge they need to deal with, document management, and how that can tie into, well, in this case, we'll use a scenario of contract lifecycle management. Session 7 will highlight dynamics and let's give a scenario for law firms, CRM, and session 8 will take us through a case study, a little bit more of a practical case study using the Power Apps application in the context of case management. So thank you, very much for joining. I think there's so much potential for Power Automate. Make sure that you go to that landing page to sign up for the next sessions as we launch them. Our next session on the 7th of June is now live, so you should be able to click attend on that session straight away. And if you've got any other questions, please feel free to pop them in the chat in the last 2 minutes. I think there's so much potential, and there's a couple of other scenarios that spring to mind for me. And if you've ever been in a law firm where you need to know when your partner has sent you an email, you can set up a Power Automate workflow to say, hey, I've got an email and from particular person X, and it can come up on your phone as a notification, so you don't miss that important email when it comes through. Lisa, Rashona, anything else to add from either of you?
No, I think you said it all, Amanda. That's all from me.
All right, I'll wrap us up then if I think we're done. Thank you everyone for your questions and comments in the chat. This remains as a live thread on LinkedIn, so if you think of something else later, you can absolutely pop questions in there and we will come back to them. This exists as an on-demand broadcast. Pretty much as soon as we end the broadcast here, it will appear on the Barhead LinkedIn page. So if you want to watch all that again, and Rashona's going through the document management thing there, I could see quite a few people in the chat saying, yes, this is a scenario that really resonates, and you could watch that through the step-by-step again, or share this with your colleagues. That'll be available on demand pretty much as soon as we're done here. Thank you so much. I think that's a wrap. Thank you, Rashona and Amanda, and thanks everyone for watching. And
Thanks,
we'll
everyone. See you in a fortnight for the next
2
one.
weeks.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.